Ladies and gentlemen, K Kim here. Welcome to the daily update. Hope you guys had a good day trading today. Market is up about 1.5% on the S&P. We saw Nasdaq is up about 1%. The banks is also up about 1%, but we did see small caps is up 3.2% and the Dow is up about 2.2% today. So we saw the small caps industrials leading the way. I also realized that the airline stocks are up quite a bit today, along with the restaurant stocks today. Some of those airline and some of the restaurant stocks are up about 10% in some of those stocks there. So with that, market is up, and we are trading in a level where, in the minor term, in the very very short term of things, we're trying to stay up above a pivotal level here, right? It looks like that was the prior support. We held there for a couple of days and looked like it was going to be breakout, and then next day that thing just got flushed to the downside. And then today, with today's trading session, we actually got back above it. As you can see here, that's the first, second, third, fourth, fifth, sixth hour. At some point, we did come back to retest that. On the second hour, we got above that pivot, right? That horizontal pivot, and also we were trading above my short-term moving average there, the squiggly line, and then we acted that short-term squiggly line support moving average there, did act as support there. We continue high, we'll pull back. On the last hour, looked like we were going to see another downturn possibly, but found support on my short-term moving average. And then that pivot here, that 302, very, very important pivot, right? Prior resistance or prior support, potentially acting as prior resistance here throughout Friday's trading, and then it flipped back. Looked like it's been acting as support throughout the day today. So that's an important level there. Let's kind of zoom out and see what we can expect or what kind of environment that we're in. We've been actually talking about last several weeks now, right? This short-term, more like a short to mid-term falling resistance. Also talked about these gaps still open, and the longer they stay open, the more hectic it's gonna be for the buyers. And we've been talking about that ever since this gap was open. So ever since then, it's been difficult market, I think, for both bulls and bears, because there has been a lot of fake outs. There has been a lot of shenanigans and whipsaws happening, because it looks like there's a big gap up right here. And it really, got filled right away, came right back up, and it's been zigzagging all day. And then we saw another gap up, and then it really didn't amount to anything. We actually pulled back again. And then we saw another gap up, and then we saw very, very abrupt sell-off, taking out this low, making lower low there, while already having to see that lower highs there. And then on Thursday, we saw a big move towards the end of the day. And then Friday, we gapped down, came down pretty hard, continued to drip lower throughout the Friday's trading session. And today, we're actually trying to gap back up, gap up, fade it, come back up. And then now, towards the last hour, we did see some buying activities there. So it's been a hectic environment for both bulls and bears in the last several weeks here, because it hasn't been easy predicting what is to come following days or couple days, because the market has been doing pretty much been whipsawing everyone. Like, there's a gap up, looks like there's a continuation, and there was no continuation. It looks like market is going to continue to the downside, but then we actually continue higher. Even going into this weekend, I think the sentiment was pretty bearish, not just in the price action, but just overall psychological sentiment among investors and traders. Just if you just kind of read through social media and things like that, I think a lot of people are looking for continuation to the downside going into the Monday. But you can see we actually got back up. So it's been difficult, hectic environment. But market has been a lot of up and down shenanigans. But I think one thing is pretty clear at this point, that which I've covered everything on the weekend video that I've produced on Friday. So you can look at that and understand the overall picture. but we're still in this sideways choppy environment, right? We're still in this, overall, here, let's kind of zoom out. We haven't looked at a bigger picture here. It's kind of overall long-term bullish sentiment as far as, you can see that my long-term moving average is still rising higher. So we want to continue to give benefit of the doubt to the buyers in the longer term. But in the short term, as of today, I still want to say we're in bearish sentiment in the short term. Benefit of the doubt. Despite the fact that we did see some buying activities today, because we've seen that before here, we saw it 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 here. It seems like every time there's buying activities, market trying to find some traction to the upside, next day bears brought it down pretty hard, right? So despite the fact that we did see some gains today, throughout the indices, I still want to give benefit of the doubt to the sellers in the short term. When it comes to midterm, I'm more neutral to / hectic environment, right? It's neutral to / hectic environment in the midterm. So, at this point, I think, you see my midterm moving average here. I think that's the key going forward, going into tomorrow. This midterm moving average is going to be important because that moving average continues to decline. Last Thursday, we saw a big bullish move. I think bulls wanted to see some kind of follow through, at least come back up and retest that 310. We didn't see it. It was right at that falling midterm moving average there. That thing came down and then it dripped lower all day on Friday. And today you can see we're about, a couple points away from that. And 306, 307 is where bulls need to go. And we need to kill, at least is a first thing is first. There are many down gaps here. We got a total of 4 down gaps here that has been open in the last several weeks. Bulls need to at least start filling some of these gaps. If bulls fail to fill this gap yet again, bears going to try to bring it down, fill this gap at 297, 295, right? So bulls need to go up and fill this gap, but that midterm moving average just hanging around underneath the gap area, protecting it, it's gonna act as resistance. We have the midterm moving average, we have the gap area, both of those levels gonna act as pretty strong resistance. Best case scenario for the buyers, either tomorrow or Wednesday, gapping it up above 307. Right? If the buyers want to gap it up tomorrow morning, that will be about 1.13% gap up. That's not a huge gap up. That's doable gap up. That would be the best case scenario because there are too many resistance here, the gap area and my midterm moving average. And we already have this falling downtrend resistance, meaning short-term sentiment is bearish. Wind is blowing to the downside in the shorter-term sense. And ever since any kind of a moves been very, very difficult for the buyers, right? So maybe gapping it up above 307 to start that jump start, right? To pump that jump start and then get up and fill this gap, right? And then meet with the downtrend resistance and pull back and reassess the situation at the time. That will be the best case scenario. We start fizzling, we start showing some weakness in this vicinity, bears gonna bring it down. So despite the fact that we saw some bullish buying activities, bulls going to need more. Buyers need to see a follow through because we have not seen a follow through ever since this thing started dripping lower from 315. No follow through. We saw a move, 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 no follow through. We saw a move today. Are we going to see a follow through or are we going to see another downturn? Keep in mind, we're still in a downtrend with lower highs there. That's where I'm giving it, bearish in the short term still until I see the price, right, telling me that the sentiment is shifting in the short term. So I still want to give benefit of the doubt to the sellers in the short term with the midterm hectic environment sentiment. Let's look at the oscillator here real quick and try to figure out what we can expect, what the oscillator is telling us. Oscillator is actually showing a lot of a bullish momentum at this point because, first of all, we saw a bullish cross last week, and then on Friday, it crossed back down, which we have not seen this happening throughout this entire rally since March lows, right? We talked about how once this thing gets flipped, usually it goes all the way back up to the top of its band. This is the first time where we flipped and then flipped back to the downside, and then we flipped back to the upside today. I think second hour trading today, and what that did was, with that flipping back and forth, we created bullish divergence. This is actually rather strong bullish reversal signal, and you can see it closed the day with these two lines separating, right? That's a pretty strong bullish signal. You can see right there. When they start to separate, let's go back. We can look at it here. So they start to separate, they start to separate, they start to separate, they start to separate, they start to separate. When they start to separate, they usually get back up to, you know, at least at near the top of its band, right? So it's been back to back, you know, bullish cross, bearish cross, gap back up to bullish cross, and this tells me we have a good probability, high probability that this oscillator is going to go back up to this level right here, right? At least the top of its band. With that, price may go to 307 or it may go up to 311. It all depends on how the price is going to react and how the buyers going to utilize and maximize from this signal right here. What bears need to do, obviously need to kill that momentum right away. But once that bullish divergence is formed like this, there's a pretty good probability that next day, in the next couple of days, price could continue to move higher. So going into tomorrow, we have overall sentiment in the short term, bearish sentiment, despite the fact that we do have bullish price action today. But looking at the oscillator, it tells us that this bounce has just a little bit more weight to it. It's a little bit more stronger because with that bullish divergence and the those oscillator lines separating, right? So I expect and I think there's a good probability we're gonna see a follow through this time around. But we're gonna meet with that resistance right here, that midterm moving average, and we're gonna see that gap area acting as resistance also. Like I said earlier, the best thing for the buyers is they must gap it up. If they can gap it up, they'll the best case scenario and really jumpstart this thing. If we can gap it up above 307, 307.50 or 307.70, we're probably gonna get to 310, 311, 12. If not, these areas are gonna be very, very strong resistance. And so those are the things that I'm going to expect going into tomorrow, right? Bears, if you let buyers kind of hang around the first hour or two, they're going to bring it up. Why? Because my oscillators is pretty screaming bullish at this one with the bullish divergence also, right? And so unless there's some heavy selling in the first hour tomorrow, right? Or some big gap down, little gap down is not going to cut it. Big gap down, unless there's some big gap down or heavy selling the first hour. If not, we get a little gap down or it opens flat or any kind of gap up, it's all gonna favor the buyers. And buyers gonna push it up to 305 and 307, and that's gonna be the battleground that we're gonna be looking at tomorrow. I'll come back for you guys tomorrow, update you on this. We'll go from there, right? So you guys enjoy your evening and good luck trading tomorrow.